Well, welcome everybody to another Mindful Monday where we provide resources, education, connection, and collaborations to support you on your wellness journey. And I would like to start by thanking our sponsors, Dr. Beverly Wixon, White Sands Premier Travel, Vibe, and BAM Metrics for making this episode possible. So, are you ready to break free from financial stress and embrace a life of abundance? Dr. Wixon is an infinite abundance and happiness coach, and she's turned her own financial struggles into a journey of empowerment, 10 timesing her savings in the less than 6 years without the hassle of budgets or sacrificing joy. So I know I, for one, am definitely curious to know how we're going to be doing this. But she is also the author of Get Rich on Any Salary, where she reveals her soul-aligned strategies to help women not just survive, but thrive financially. So, Beverly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Laura. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I when I read that, I was reading that, I was like, God, that's incredible. Less than 6 years when you got, financial gurus and everything else or whatever telling you that it's going to be at least 10, 12 years. I know I can tell you I'm for one of the spreadsheet people. I try to stick to it. Otherwise I'm way out. So I was super excited to have you with us. But can you share with us, how did your personal journey from struggling with debt to achieving financial goals wind up going into your approach for coaching? And
Well, I was a teacher
uh-huh.
in one of the lowest paying districts in the lowest paying state at the time, and it is again, Florida. Um, and I had been in a relationship for quite a few years with this one gentleman, and we had a house together that he was renting, and so I had invested a lot in it to help him with it. In fact, the mortgage was in my name. And I kind of thought, well, this is going to be my retirement. I mean, we've been dating for a long time. Thought this was going to, carry on and go further. And it didn't. But we remained kind of friends, and, there were still possibilities, open. And then all of a sudden, things started to shift. And I was like, the money that's being paid for rent, I wasn't getting any of it, which I was supposed to get to pay off my mortgage.
Right.
And I'm starting to notice that it's going out as fast as it's coming in. And every couple of months, I wouldn't get a bank statement. And I would go to the bank, and he had changed it to only go to him. So this was going back and forth, and I kept going to him and saying something. I said, this is technically embezzlement you're doing here. Oh, no. I always put it back. I'm like, well, you haven't put it back this month. Still trying to remain somewhat friendly. I mean, I knew he was also struggling with a job and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it would get back in, but usually a couple months later. And then I went to look up something online. I don't even know why. But I was looking up something about property taxes. And I happened to, when I put in my name, only my home came up. And I was like, well, that's odd. Used to, the other house came up. So I decided to go to that one and check it, and my name was no longer on it. He had removed my name he'd gone down to the county office and removed my name from the deed. I'm not sure how that happened. I don't know if he forged it. I don't know what he did.
Wow.
But I immediately called him and said, and he told me that, oh, that was changed. I had that changed. I'm like, well, you can't. I didn't sign anything. This is fraud. No, it's not. I have every right to. I'm like, no, you don't. I ended up calling the attorney. I mean, this is over the Christmas holidays, right as we're ending the Christmas holidays, getting ready to go back to school. And so I'm calling the attorney the next day, and yes, indeed it is fraud. I was right. So we go through all of this, and at that time, I'm like, I can be stuck with this mortgage for something I don't even have any claim to, which is exactly what the attorney said. So we had to go through all of these things. And I mean, we had to go through it for months because he kept wanting me to declare that it wasn't fraud, which I flatly refused to do. I was like, I will suck it all up before I was in that mode back then. And that same week, somebody at work made the comment of, oh, we can't afford to save Bev. We're just teachers. And so all of that, I'm sure it was the combination of the two things, because I said how many times I can't afford it, which started the day I started teaching. I never said that. And I think it all hit me as, why is this happening? We are all intelligent human beings. I'm an intelligent human being. I don't know how I got myself into this mess, but by God, I'm not going to stay in it. Scarlett O'Hara, as God is my witness, And I went home that night from that teacher saying that and checked all of my accounts, every penny I'd put into a retirement account, and was absolutely floored, and not in a good way. I had been saving into a retirement account for, at that point, about 15 years, 10 or 15, well, 12 or 15. And I had nothing. I didn't even have a year's salary. I didn't even have half a year's salary. I had like nothing.
Wow.
I was just like, oh my God, this house that I thought was going to be part of my retirement, this, the mortgage was over $100,000. And I'm thinking, I was thinking it's going to grow. It's, we're going to buy it till we sell it. We're going to sell it for $250, which he did, by the way, about 2 years ago. Nothing out of it, nothing, not a penny. But at that night, I was like, I texted my wasn't really a financial planner, not my financial planner, but he'd got me into the TSAs that we have. We have 403Bs, tax shelter annuities. We don't have 401Ks in teaching. So I called him, I texted him and said, we have to meet now. And he texted me back the next day. It's like, well, I don't really work in your county anymore, so I'll be over there in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm like, no, you next week. I want to see you next week. I was one of your very first clients. You come see me. So he did. And, after I finished all my kicking and screaming and cursing myself and everything, I started cleaning and clearing out stuff and telling myself, okay, you're not stupid. You caught this. You can fix this. I'm not sure how, but we can fix this.
Mm-hmm.
Doing everything I'd ever read about positive thinking and the law of attraction. Everything. When he got there, I said, this was like about a Wednesday or Thursday of 1 week. So it was about the next week, about the middle of next week. He came over and he goes, I'm so glad you called and insisted that I come. I'm like, me too, but why are you happy? He goes, well, we just started this new program. And it's a guaranteed 7% for 7 years, no matter what. I'm like, well, that's cool, considering the other thing I'm in is like, what, paying 1.5%? And he goes,
Right.
exactly. So like, we stopped those, so they just sat there and gained money, and just took exactly what I was putting into those and put it into this one. And I was like, this is cool. This is 7% for 7 years. I'm good. I'm going to be done by then. And he's like, no, you'll have to work them out. You'll have to keep them like, no. In fact, I wanted to be done in 5 years, so I'm going to give you 6. This is good for 7. I'm going to give you 6 with my money, and this is how much I need to make. And he's like, oh, God, it's going to take you 10 to 12 years. Easy. I'm like, no, 6 years. I will be out of here, done in 6 years. And I was absolutely certain. He left. I told 2 other people that I knew who used the same company, but a different financial planner. They contacted theirs within the next week, and the program was unavailable. And I'm like, he told me he just started. So it was available for less than 30 days to get into.
Okay. So it was a legitimate program, but it was just, okay.
It was a legitimate program, but I felt like I manifested that baby. I mean, like I said, I threw everything I knew at it, every single thing. Burn this candle. I would have danced in the moonlight naked if it had said do that for law of attraction, which you don't have to do. But it wasn't available to them. So like I said, I felt like I totally manifested this. And over the next 6 years, it never made 7%. That was the guaranteed minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I always made closer to 10 and 11% every year. How does that ever happen? I mean, it never happens on anything. I still have no idea, but all I know is I started checking it more often, because when I had checked it that one night, it was probably the first time in 10 years. I started checking it, but not a lot. I check it a couple times a year just to make sure. And I can remember calling him because I had checked it one night, and the next day I called him after school was out. I was on my way home. And I said, you need to check my account. because I know how much is in it because I checked it last night. He called me back about 15 minutes later and goes, I don't believe this. He goes, how did this? He was shocked. I said, so I'm done. I'm done at the end of this year, and which was about a week later, which I didn't leave, but he kept saying, no, keep working, keep working. I'm like, no, I don't like it. I don't like it. And now I met my number.
Mm-hmm.
I have my number in there and over here, and, in a couple of different accounts. I said, I met my number. I don't need to keep up with the stress and something I don't like, something that's toxic. Only thing is, the next day I found out I had a $50,000 grant for the library that I was running. So I said, okay, I'll stay for fall because I want to get all these books in and play with them. And, I was working in an elementary school that last couple of years. And I was like, I want to get these kids reading these brand new books. So that's what I did. I came back in the fall. I stayed till right after Christmas, so January 31st, last day. I walked out on a Thursday afternoon and never looked back because I had met my financial goal, which I knew would sustain me for the rest of my life.
Wow. So you were able to turn a really bad situation into a good one. But so this program is what helped you actually 10 times your savings. But if that's not available anymore, then are you able to still help people?
Yes.
Guide them towards that?
Because it was all what happened here. That's what it really was. It was what happened here because I got the program, but I didn't stop. I didn't go out and get a second job.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't stop going out to dinner with friends. I actually traveled more during those 6 years than I had traveled in the 20 years before.
Wow.
So I wasn't not doing anything. And this is with my paycheck now.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I have a paycheck. And before, the joke was, oh, I just got paid yesterday and I'm already broke. And we all said that. But so the other thing that I did that day is I threw everything I knew about manifesting. Well, the first things I did was I said, you know what? Language. I know. I'm an English teacher. I was an English teacher at the time. I was like, I know words matter. So I'm not saying I'm broke again, and I'm never saying I can't afford again. Now, did I say them? Yeah, I said them and caught myself. But by working on that, the first month after doing that, I had money left over. And here's the really thing. We got paid once a month.
Mm-hmm.
We had been paid before the Christmas holidays, and we did not get paid again until the end of January. So you're talking 6 weeks' time. I still had money left over from my paycheck, which had never, ever happened in my entire career. Had not happened. Well, I'm not saying it was a lot of money that first time, but it was money. And the next month, it was more. And every month, because I started changing what I said, and I started diving into money mindset and reading everything I could find out about it and reading about everything I could find out about mind over matter and how, thoughts become things,
Mm-hmm.
Be careful what you wish for. You just might get it. I understand what that means now.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I can use it intentionally. And that's what I started doing was being intentional about my language, being intentional about my behaviors, thanking money, thanking people, looking at money completely differently. If I went into a store and was buying something and they said, oh, there's a discount, instead of just going, oh, cool, I would be like, really? Thank you so much. And I would say her name. I mean, I would get this crazy excitement as if I had just won the lottery, the Powerball. Mm-hmm. And it lifted my mood. It lifted their mood because they thought I was nuts. I also realized that by doing that and being so grateful, gratitude is the fastest path to abundance. It is. And so I started looking at money differently and started noticing every time I, got a free donut at work. We got a lot of donuts in teaching. So I counted them.
Well, it's supposed to be apples, not donuts.
Apples come from the kids. The donuts come from faculty.
Okay.
But if you go to, I kind of looked at it as, well, you go to Dunkin' Donuts and buy a donut, it's about $1.25 probably. So I started just writing it down. And I was shocked at how much money was coming to me that wasn't cash. And so I just started looking at that as this is actually my income. that little thing I get from the school board, that's one thing. But the rest of this is my income. And when I started looking at all of that and accepting it and being grateful for it, that's when things really started to take off. And like I said, every month I had more money left over and more money left over. And like I said, I didn't stop doing things. I did more things. Like I said, I traveled. I went.
Mm-hmm.
I went to, I think, 6 different countries during those 6 years.
Wow.
Which, like I said, I hadn't traveled in probably. I'd been to one other place in 20 years. In the 20 years previous.
So really completely transformative for you.
Yes, and that's actually what my book is about. A lot of those things, because it has a lot of those exercises in it that I did. A lot of those short, simple exercises.
Yeah, and I love the title of that: "Get Rich on Any Salary." I
Well,
like,
like I said,
because you have such a wide range, and people that are really struggling and feel like they don't, get paid enough, but you have so many bills, and everybody always tells you, "Oh, well, put away this percentage to save." And it's like, okay, so how am I supposed to do that when I need every penny to pay this and to pay that? And so, yeah.
and that's the thing because that's exactly how I felt.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I didn't have money left over after at the end of the month. I was always struggling then, and I was eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches the last week of every month because of waiting for my paycheck, and all of a sudden, just 2 statements: I'm broke, I can't afford. First 2 things I got out of my head, quit saying, and I had money left over. I didn't have to have the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for a full week. I think the first time I had them for a couple of days, but not the full week. But I had money left over. And then the next month it was more. And then the next month it was more. And I started realizing how often I heard people saying, I can't afford that. I can't afford that. And I remember the first time I looked at somebody who was talking about something that was like $25,000 they wanted to do. And they're all like, oh my God, I can't afford that. And I went, I can. And head spun. And I just went, oh, I'm not going to, but I could afford it. And they went, oh, well, yeah, I could put it on a credit card. I said, no, I don't use credit cards anymore. I said I could pull money out of the bank and do that, but I'm not interested.
Yeah, we used to joke and say, oh, is that all? I'll just write you a check. So I was like, doesn't have to clear, right? We'll just write you a check.
Exactly. And that joke still gets into your psyche and, becomes, it is a joke, but it makes
But it's actually still negative.
Yeah. That one's still a negative one. But when you look at it as, I can afford it, I don't want it, but I can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives a completely different thing. If you said, I'll just write you a check and you pulled out a check, different story. But because of the way we say that, when we say it, it's our brain knows she's being sarcastic.
Yeah.
Brain does know sarcasm. It may not know the difference between truth and fantasy, but it does know sarcasm.
I would say words are powerful and we are our thoughts.
Yes.
I had mentioned that with a guest I had previous because, we always call it weight loss and losing weight. And I told people, and then somebody says, really, are you looking to find it again? I'm like, no, you're right. I released it. So there is power in words. And like you said, if you take that moment to change, that thought,
Yes.
yeah. And it seems simple, and some people, I guess, think silly, or it's hard for them to wrap their head around and believe it. But it doesn't cost you anything to try it, right? So why not try it?
Exactly. Because the life we're currently living, at one point we dreamed for, we wished and hoped for. And I know the first time I ever heard that and thought, I was like, wait a second. But you look back, you look back and you think, okay, there was a time I didn't want to be bothered. Okay, now I'm not bothered because there's nobody around. Maybe nobody calls you, but it's because you once hoped to not be bothered.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an issue with money, there was probably a time you were saying, I wish I didn't worry so much about bringing money in. Well, now you're not, because it's not coming in. So you're not worrying so much about bringing it in. You're worrying more about finding it and having it to pay bills, not attracting it.
Right.
So everything is something we at one point wished for, even though it might seem like it came to us a very strange way. That, like I said, that's the be careful what you wish for. You just might get it.
Yeah. And you believe that's a lot of it too, has to do with our upbringing and our surroundings. Because a lot of us grew up with those sayings that money doesn't grow on trees. And you had all those sayings, and you kind of get that stuck in your head, kind of like bad programming.
Yes. And you have to get rid of those. You have to stop saying them. And what, I'm not saying that affirmations are the be all end all, because they're not.
Mhm.
Um, because we have to remove some of the old stuff. Sometimes you don't know what's going to be the phrase you're going to say. Okay, I can't say money doesn't grow on trees. I can't say I'm broke. I can't say I can't afford. What do I say? What do I say? What do I say? If you have something written down ahead of time, when it starts to come out of your mouth, you can change it. If you're trying to do it in the moment, it's like,
Overthinking. I'm slightly familiar with that.
we all do that. And like you said, we all grew up with these phrases. I mean, I grew up with things like, there's starving children someplace. So you have to eat everything on your plate because there's starving children someplace else.
Mhm.
As a kid, I thought, this makes no sense. Can't we just mail it to them? I don't want green beans and Brussels sprouts. Can we mail this to them? And then I got in trouble for saying, for being sassy.
I can't imagine that.
No, I can't. And so I finally learned years later, why say that? It makes no sense. It's not like my eating it's going to help that child that's starving over there.
Right.
So I got rid of that one too. I don't say that I never said that to little kids. I just said, if you don't like it, don't eat it. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. We'll find something new.
Yeah, because again, really those statements kind of come from out of lack or loss, right? Because parents are with like, we can't afford a lot of food, so you're going to eat this, or so you keep like guilt tripping them into eating it, not wasting it, and then, but that's all still negative
Yes,
wording.
exactly. So, I mean, the positive, and I'm not, it's not that you have to be positive 100% of the time, because nobody can. We're human. But the more often you can be, or even, and that's why, like I said, when they would say that at a register or something that was on a discount, I would go like nutso, because that extra exuberance, then when you do say something negative, it doesn't match that exuberance.
Right.
So, one negative thought is not going to diminish even one positive thought. You have to have like 10 negatives to diminish, actually more than that, to diminish one positive. So saying that positive thing one time helps. And the more often you can say it, the more you can get rid of those negative things. And getting rid of some of those negative phrases that we've always said, it's not that hard.
No. Mm-mm.
It's really not, because we can.
It just takes a conscious effort instead of going around with the subconscious and going in whatever fog we're going in. It just takes a conscious effort to catch yourself and start reprogramming.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then you start to notice, like I said, you start to notice how many other people say it, and you start going, oh, I haven't said that in how long? That's kind of cool.
No, definitely incredible advice. And I'm sure you have tips and stuff that you can share with people as to where they start or how they start doing this. Plus, I'm also curious with what your pivotal moment was that inspired you to write that book. But we got to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors, and we're going to be right back.
Yeah.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No Bozone. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with BAM Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created BAM metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
So I have to ask you, because a lot of us, I've had a lot of people say, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book." What was the pivotal moment? What inspired you to write your book?
Somebody saying I should. I guess it was the right person, because same thing. I'd heard it for ages, but I had all these exercises. I had all these things, and I would share them with so many people. And somebody said, you need to just put these into something easy for people to get. And so I thought, oh, why not? I mean, I had them kind of in little PDFs, 2 or 3 things. And I thought, I just kind of slapped some together. And then I was like, I could just make this a book. And so I started doing that. And then I thought, but it needs a beginning, because I was just going to do it like as an ebook. And I thought, it needs a beginning, which was when I went to creating your own reality, because we really did. And I had to face that myself. Like I said, I had to realize that I got myself into this situation.
Right.
With the house, I got myself into that. And it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because had it not happened, I would have continued to live in the fairy tale of this is going to be my retirement someday. And it would have never happened. But, I could have gone through that for another 5 or 6 years and then really been in a bad spot. But when I felt the nudge, like I said, I don't even know why I was on the computer looking at property taxes, but that's what I was doing. I have no idea why. And I looked at it, and I felt this nudge, and I checked it, and you got to follow those nudges sometimes. You just hear them. But when I wrote the book, I'd helped all these different people with it, and they were like, can't you put this in something I can just have them all? I'm like, well, I sent them all to you. Don't you have them in a folder someplace?
It's probably like our sticky notes. They wind up going here and there, and then you look back and it's like, what?
So, my first thought was I'll just keep them into a folder and let them have a shared folder. And then that's when I started saying, well, I'll just put them into one big document. And I did. And then I decided, well, if I'm going to go this far, I may as well turn it into why you use these things, how they help, a little bit more. And so that's what I did. And that's how the book came about.
Nice. And so the book, Get Rich on Any Salary, they can find that on Amazon or?
In both Kindle form and paperback. And it has at the end of every chapter, there's little exercises.
Oh, nice.
And now with a Kindle, obviously you can't write on Kindle. So I do have a companion PDF that I will happily send to anyone if you just contact me and tell me that you got it on Kindle and send me the little thing that says you bought it. I will happily send that to you so that you can print it out and have it or write online with it. Because in the book, you can obviously write in the book. And if you do buy the paperback and you still want the companion because you don't want to write in your book, just let me know.
Yeah, I've done those before, and it's really kind of helpful when you read and you do stuff, and then you've got something where you can write down and like apply instead of going through the book and then trying to remember what you read.
Yeah.
So
and that's what most people seem to love about it. I mean, everybody, that's what they tell me is, I'm just so glad you put the exercises right there at the end of the chapter so I can do them right away. There's a summary, key takeaways. Some people have told me that one person said she read the whole thing and didn't do anything. And then she kind of went back. And that's when I did a little book club with it. And so she went back as we went through the book club and did a chapter at a time and did the exercises. She said, it made a big difference. Oh, different than just reading through the whole thing. I'm like, well, yeah, I was a teacher.
Yeah, kind of in your wheelhouse there.
So that's what led to it. And the only thing I couldn't put into it was a lot of the energy work I do. It's hard to put a meditation in there, and I didn't want to make links to that because I figured there was enough, honestly, in this for someone to get started, because that's how I got started. I got started with doing all these simple, practical exercises that you just start looking at the money that's coming into you. You start being more grateful for it, and it changed everything. everything. It was another 5 years later before I started to go, okay, what next? It just feels like something's missing. I didn't really even know what was missing. I just felt like something was missing. And I think that was more of the general happiness. I mean, I was grateful. I was doing my gratitude exercises every day. I was being exuberant when they told me I had a discount. But the overall just daily happiness from the time I got out of bed until the time I went to bed was not totally there. And that's when I started thinking, I used to meditate more. I should start meditating more. So I started doing that, and then I started reading some more books, and I started going, I need to bring this into my life. I need to bring this into my life. And I shared that with a couple of clients who were having some issues. And I said, let's just try this. And we did that, and they were like, that was so cool. So I finally embraced it. It took me a long time to embrace that as I can do this for other people. But I have embraced it, and that's what I do much more of. I include still the simple practical exercises because they work. They're powerful.
Right. And let different things work for different people. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for somebody that's just starting out they're struggling, they're strapped, feel like they don't have time, where would you suggest that they start?
Here. I mean, like I said, it's $6, I think, on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
It's $2 on Kindle. And like I said, I will happily send you the companion PDF. They're so simple. So simple. One of the first things is, I'm not sure which chapter it is now. I think it's the 3rd chapter. Talking about the words. And you just kind of make a little list of some of the things that you've said, heard, grew up with. And sometimes we don't remember them when we first say it. So many people, I can remember so many people say, I don't say anything negative about money. Oh, okay. Do you ever say money grows on trees or money doesn't grow on trees? Well, yeah. Okay, there's one. Do you ever say I can't afford? Well, yeah, there's one. Do you ever say, oh, it's just a penny, I'm not going to pick it up? There's one. Do you ever pick it up, stick it in your pocket, and not even bother to say thank you to the universe? There's one. And do you ever talk about people just got that job because of whatever reason? They go, oh, yeah, because I saw that a lot. And they're like, oh, there you go. We all have them. We all have blocks to money. I don't care who you are. Elon Musk has blocks about money. Everybody does.
Right.
Just at different levels.
Yeah. Have you ever had anyone argue with you that says, well, that's not negative, that's just the truth?
Yes. Yes. And I just go, okay. If that's really what you want to believe, that's okay. I'm not going to argue with them. There's no point in me trying to convince them that what they're saying is negative and is harming them.
Right.
What I have found is that when I say it and then they tell me that's not negative, that's just the truth, and I just agree with them, a few weeks or a month or so later, they come back and they go, I never really looked at it that way.
Yeah. When it becomes habit or your truth,
exactly,
you have a tendency not to see it.
Exactly. But then what happens is I think they start to notice it in other people first, and then they look at themselves and go, I do the same thing. I certainly didn't notice how many times I was saying I'm broke. I didn't grow up hearing it. I grew up in the military. My dad was a non-com. When I was told, no, you can't do that, it was never, no, you can't do that because we don't have 25 cents to send you to the bowling alley.
Yeah. And for those that don't know what non-com is, do you want to tell them what that is?
Non-commissioned officer.
Okay.
Basically, it's not an officer.
I try to watch that as well because me being military, I know, but not everybody watches the military. We all have our funky little acronyms, but then, or even in different countries, they have different ways of saying things. And it's like, okay, not everybody knows what that is.
Yeah. It means he's below a lieutenant.
Yeah.
Not an officer. So we lived in base housing with same house everybody else had. Mm-hmm. And when I say a quarter to go bowling, I'm pretty much, I think it was a quarter per game and 10 cents for shoes. So $1 got me 3 games. And if they said no, it was just no. It wasn't no, we can't afford it. Now, I had friends who would say, I can't go because my parents say I can't afford it. I never grew up with that. But as soon as I started teaching, everybody said, nobody goes into teaching to make money. You're here because it's a calling. Which, okay, it might be, but still, that means we still need to survive.
Right. Yeah.
But every teacher I knew said they couldn't afford it and they couldn't do this. And I know my first month, I was doing things. And they're like, oh, don't worry, you'll stop doing those things real quick because you won't be able to afford it. And I did. I fell right in line with them by the end of the first month, lockstep in line with I can't afford, I can't do, they don't pay us enough. And did not realize how much I said it until all those years later when I decided I'm not saying it.
Yeah. If when I've had things that somebody had called me out on, and I start thinking, then I start seeing it, it's like, okay, then it's kind of like it starts showing up. It's like, oh, I guess I do that. We need to change that.
So like I said, I mean, I denied it too, just like everybody else does. Not everybody, but a lot of people, like you said, they do say.
Mm-hmm.
That's not being negative. That's just the truth.
Yep.
I mean, depending on my relationship with the person, I might say something like you said earlier, well, just give it a try.
Right.
It doesn't hurt to try. And they'll usually grudgingly say, okay. And then they either will or they will try at it.
Yeah. If you're really close and you know that they don't put up with the BS, then you can call them out on it. But other than that, just like you said, it depends on who you're talking to.
Right. But
Yeah.
I have found that most of them, when you just say, oh, okay, well, might be worth a try, but it's up to you. Then they'll try it later. I mean, honestly, it's like dealing with teenagers.
I don't think we ever stop being kids at heart.
Yeah, we don't.
So since we are talking about abundance unlocked, how do you define abundance and what role do you think mindset plays in attracting it into our lives?
I think abundance varies for everybody. I think wealth varies for everybody. And I think one of the downfalls, one of the pitfalls that we have, at least in America, is we say, I need $1 million. I need $1 million to do anything. And I need to have it by the end of this year. Well, I'm sorry. Chances are, even if you hit the lottery, you're going to lose it within 3 years. The statistics are over 85% that lottery winners lose it all within 3 years, and they're worse off than they were before they won the lottery because nothing has shifted here. So I think of abundance as having whatever I need, and I do mean need, my basics, plus being able to do the things that I really, really, really want to do. Now, can I do everything in the world, snap my fingers and be on a private jet and fly off to Paris for lunch tomorrow, because it would be tomorrow? No, I can't do that. I mean, I remember Bewitched. And
Yeah. Or Genie.
Yeah, or Genie. Be in a foreign country having lunch. No, I can't do that. I can't fly off to Paris every day and go have lunch or here and there. I don't have the money for that. I shouldn't say I can't. I probably could, but I
don't need to.
I don't need to, and I don't need to spend every dime that I have within 60 days.
Yep.
Because like I said, I know that I have enough money to sustain me throughout the rest of my life, and that's perfectly good. And my mother's 91. She has an older sister who's 93. So I kind of figure chances are I may live for a while, and so having that much money there, and it's just a lot of it's growing because it's in the bank, it's in different places, and so it's growing. And to me, that's what abundance is. It's not having $7 million. It's not being the richest person in the world. It's not living, having 4 houses. In fact, I used to always say, house on the beach. I'm going to own a house on the beach. I live in Florida. I remember one night they were talking about a hurricane was coming toward us. It was Ian. This was about 2 years ago, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. And a gentleman on the news, they were talking to somebody, he had just gotten his house finished that month from Hurricane Irma, which happened in 2017. So it had been a good 4 or 5 years that it took him to fix that house. And I went, you know what? I'm never going to own a house on the beach. I can rent. I can go over there and rent, and if they say a hurricane's coming, see you, bye. I'm out of here. I don't need to worry about insurance. I don't need to worry about that house. To me, that's abundance, when I know that I can live the way I want to live and what brings me joy, and that money will do for me what I want it to do for me. I'm not hoarding money because I do believe in spending it. One of my favorite movies is Hello, Dolly. One of my favorite quotes, I guess, is from Hello, Dolly, where she talks about her late husband. Horace always said, money's like manure. It doesn't do any good unless you spread it around. So I do like to spend it. As long as it's still growing, I'm good. If there's going to come a certain point in my life that I say, you know what? I don't care if it grows anymore or not. I'm spending it. Everything. That's not now, but that may happen someday. That, to me, that's what abundance is. It's not a certain number, because I think that number is different for everybody. And when I talk to people and I get them away from, I have to have $1 billion, I have to have 10 million, I have to have 1 million, and we bring it down as to what's important about money, which happens to be a chapter.
Right.
About what's important to you about money. Why is it important? What can it do for you? Then everything changes. When you know
and that's because a lot of coaches that you work with, if you work with them or whatever, always tell you to like think big and you make these like huge goals. And that's where I think a lot of people start to get the whole, I have to have $1 million or I have to be 6 figures or 7 figures. Cause a lot of people are saying, oh, I have 6 figures, 7 figures. Okay. So what? But yeah. Can you live happy without it? I think so.
Cool. I mean, I look back to my teaching days. Early on in my teaching, somebody gave me a card for my birthday or something that said something about success, and that success was having the love of children. Now, granted, at this point in time, I had no money because lowest paying state, and I was still into that mindset of I have no money. But I knew then I had the love of children. My students adored me, and so I was like, so I'm successful. And then after that, of course, the next month I had no money. But once I did change that mindset, when I was still teaching, and I changed that whole mindset, I realized then I was successful in so many different ways. So many different ways. And that's why during those 6 years that I was 10xing my savings, more than, that I was able to travel. Because for me, that's what was important about money. That's what money could do for me. And I hadn't let it do that in all those years because I was too busy saying, I can't afford it. And as soon as I quit saying it, it's literally a few months after I quit saying it, a trip came up. A friend of mine called me, and she had seen this thing about going to Iceland for 4 days for this ridiculously low rate. Like she goes, my husband doesn't want to go. And so she gathered about 5 of us. We were over there one night talking about it. And some of them were going, is this a scam? I mean, $1,000. And I was like, well, it's only 4 days. Come on. It's not going to be ultra expensive. And all of a sudden her husband's like, okay, I have to go too. The 6 of us made plans, bought all the clothing we needed because we're in Florida. We didn't have that kind of clothing.
You need it for Iceland. I've been there for a year.
We were there for 4 days, but you still had to have coats and everything. And we made these plans and went in, that was the end of February. We went during spring break. So it was like less than a month's time. Prior to shifting my mindset, there is no way I would have done that. I mean, we all joked about, I've never made plans this fast to go someplace, out of the country. But I would have never been able to do that had it not been for changing my mindset. Now, 2 of the girls, one of them was freaking out and she was charging everything. But her partner was like, this is easy, we got this. So there was one with the mindset of everything's good, one without. But everybody, and I'm sure that the one went along with it partially because the partner was saying everything was going to be okay. Not going to let the partner go along.
Yeah. So I know and I agree with you. Mindset is powerful and very important. Would you say mindset about money is the same as your relationship with money?
Yes.
Or is that too? Okay.
I think it's the same. Because a lot of people think you can't love money. We've all heard that one, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. Well, I totally disagree with that. The Bible was written in ancient Greek. There's like half a dozen words that translate into love, and then look at all the synonyms for the word love in the English language. So worship, I tend to agree with you. Don't worship money. I'm not going to be Scrooge McDuck. I'm not going to worship money. But I do believe in nurturing your money, in loving your money, in not crumpling it up and throwing it into your purse, keeping it nice and neat in the wallet. My mother was a teller. I put my money the same way, head facing up.
Same direction.
And I think that's important. I keep ones and fives in a lovely little box that I got in Italy. And when it fills up, I take it to the bank because it's just the box is full. It's not about a certain amount of money. It's about the box is full. And so I do think it's the same thing as your relationship with money. But I think it starts with thinking, okay, if I shift my language, if I look at what's important to me about money. So in the beginning, I think it is the mental part. And then, because I do talk about in the book, even relationship, write a letter to money. You can write a letter to money just like you would to your lover. And you apologize to it for the things you've said, done, the way you treated it. You thank it for always being there, because it is always there. I mean, how many times do we sit here and go, I have got to have this amount of money for something? And lo and behold, it shows up. Or we get a bonus, and then lo and behold, something happens.
And it's about the same amount as your bonus.
We always make that a negative thing. So many people say, there goes the money. But here's the thing. Thank you for just giving me that money. You might not have had it otherwise. If your air conditioner had broken down, you didn't get that bonus, you'd be stuck in the heat. So be grateful that you just got it.
Yeah, it's so true. And the reason I brought that up, because you were talking about the lottery, and from what I've heard from some people is that most people lose that money because if they're not used to having money, or they feel like they're not worthy of having the money, then when they get it, they don't really know how to hold on it or have it, because it doesn't feel like their comfort zone. And so they wind up either spending it or giving it away or whatever, and then they're back in the same situation. So that's why I was curious about between the mindset and relationship.
Yeah, that we push it away when we don't think we deserve it. We'll push it away.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to get bonuses at the end of the school year because I was department chair so many times. I didn't think I deserved it in those days. I took the entire department out to lunch after school was out, in the summer, drinks and all on me. There went the check. So yeah, and because I didn't have a good relationship with money in those days. And then, like I said, but it was that one day when I said, I'm never saying I'm broke again. And I'm never saying I can't afford. It shifted things. Not only the money-wise, the energy, but it shifted things in me because I started to see money differently. Shifted my relationship with money. It made me realize, man, money shows up. Even when I don't expect it to, it shows up. I can remember many times being someplace to buy something and having my credit card ready. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, oh, well, this is on discount. This is on discount. It's only this much. And I go, oh, wait a second. Reaching, I got cash.
Right.
And I love cash. I still love cash. Credit cards are great, but my belief is pay it off every month. If you can't do it now, work your way to that. And when you get to that point, pay it off every month, because getting those points is wonderful. It's a great thing.
Yeah.
But man, cash, it's a lot harder to peel off 520s to pay for a sweater that I don't need than it is to take out that piece of plastic and go, sure, tap.
And again, mindset, right? It seems something so simple.
Well, it's mindset. And like you said, it's also the relationship. I mean, I'm peeling off those 20s, looking at it, going, do I really want that sweater that's going to go in my cedar chest and I'll wear once?
Wow. Yeah, definitely. Beverly, we only have about 5 minutes left. I was going to say there was so much more we could cover, and I know we're going to be running out of time, but it's important. What is the most important thing that you want people to take away from this when we're talking about abundance unlocked and
I think the most important thing is that you create your own reality. You created whatever it is right now. And if you take a serious look at it, you can see where you wanted these things at some point in time. So don't look at it as a negative thing. It's not a horrible thing, because here's the cool thing. When you can look at it and go, damn, I did create this. Thank you for this quiet time I've had. Thank you for this. I created this. Then guess what that gives you the power to do? Change it. Because if you created that unintentionally, imagine what you can do with intention.
Yeah. And intention and mindset is huge. So your website that we have up here, you also have different classes at different levels, kind of a do-it-yourself and other things available. That is actually very reasonable. I was on there looking, I was on there looking around at your website. So is that one of the best places for people to connect or contact you if they want more information?
In fact, if you go there, you'll automatically get an abundance visualization. A pop-up will come up. If you want to grab that, you can grab that. I also have a Facebook group, which I'm in there every week talking about something, which is always some sort of lesson. Sometimes it goes around to get there. But I do little trainings in there all the time.
And you have those on your YouTube as well?
They're on my YouTube also. Yes. So, and I try to keep it reasonable, because like I said, in the beginning when I did it, I was grabbing everything for free I could find, and everybody's different and everybody has different levels. And my goal is to help more people. It's not about making $1 million or $1 billion or six figures every month.
No, I saw you had the programs, I think, on there for like $47 or $20. I mean, it's definitely very reasonable compared to some that I have seen, and which I always felt kind of ironic, because, when you're struggling, you're trying to change your, thing. You don't always have it all to shell out for that either, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you do. You have to start somewhere. And I think there's one actually for $27.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the do-it-yourself or do your own pace. Yeah.
The do-it-yourself one. And so do that, and then come join my group and we'll talk some more.
Do you do master classes and events then too?
I do master classes. I do events. This year, I started doing it in March. I decided I'm doing it for the rest of the year. I am doing healing sessions once a month for free. I've done a couple of meditations, which are also on my YouTube channel. And this month we're doing one. It's all aboard the I Can train, departing Stucksville, destination. I forgot the word.
And the train just left the station.
Confidence Town.
Oh, there you go.
Because it's when we get rid of those I can'ts, my daddy used to say, can't never could do nothing. And I grew up with a little engine that could. So it's so true when we stop saying I can't do it. We hear athletes talk all the time about, you got this, I can do this, I can do this. It's the truth. When we say it, when we believe it, it's not just the saying it. And so we're going to do a healing of getting rid of those, clearing those out of our heads, and reinstalling some of the I cans and what we know we're capable of doing.
And kind of go inside and feel it when you say it. Makes a difference.
Yes, it does. That's what makes the affirmations easier to take hold.
Absolutely. Well, Beverly, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your tidbits and tips. I'm sure it is greatly appreciated. And I would encourage anyone that's been struggling with that, because I know a lot of people are struggling right now. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to Beverly. And as you can see, she's very easy to talk to, and full of knowledge. So I love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. And thank you to everybody who's watching.
Absolutely. Everybody have a fantastic week, and we will catch you next time on Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. We'll see you.